What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another match preview stream. The international break is a distant memory now. Most of the Premier League teams have played, and it's time to get ready for Tottenham Hotspur tomorrow night. 8 p.m. kickoff under the lights at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And look who the cat dragged in. Simeon back from LA. How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. A very good time and good timing. Spurs to go back top of the league, so I'm ready to be back. I've missed the football. I've missed being on the channel. And I had a great time in LA, met some great people. Saw Arian out there, saw LA Ian out there. I met a great guy called David Park out there as well. So I've had a great time in LA, but now it's back down to business.
Exactly. And like you say, it's another opportunity to go back top of the league this weekend, especially with Arsenal dropping points at Stamford Bridge last night, which I thought Arsenal looked terrible, to be honest, for the majority of that game. But it's a really good opportunity for us to maybe put a bit of daylight between us and Arsenal, or us and the rest of the league, really. If you're looking at the form of the two teams coming into it, you're looking at Fulham. They're sitting in 13th in the league this season so far. It's probably a good kind of indication of where they're at, Fulham, because I don't think they've been probably any worse than that. They've not been any better than that. It's a good representative of how good they've been this season, isn't it?
I think, if anything, they've probably got a bit of an overperformance, because I think there are some games so far this season, like, for example, Luton at home, they won 1-0, where they probably shouldn't have even won that game. I think Sheffield United, the last game they had, there was a big slice of luck in them winning that game as well, albeit on balance of play maybe deserved it, but the goal they scored to take the lead was at 1-1 late in the game was a big slice of luck. I think Fulham are struggling, in my opinion, and they've been getting some results. They got a really good draw at the Emirates 2-2 with 10 men, so it shows they've still got a bit of resilience about them. They're not going to be an easy team to play against, but when you're looking at that 11, there's especially without Mitrovic now, there's just a massive lack of quality in that forward line, and I think that's going to hold them back.
Yeah, look, I can't really disagree with that too much. And when you're kind of assessing them from last season to this season, what they did really well last season was get the ball out to wide areas and flood the box with Mitrovic in the middle there. I think they were like second in terms of the whole Premier League last season for crosses last season. And with Mitrovic there, they had someone to deliver it to. This season, they're not getting anywhere near as many crosses in. I'm not sure what the reason. Maybe Willian is not performing. Maybe what he was last season. Andreas Pereira as well. But on top of that, they don't have that kind of man like Mitrovic in the middle there, with Raul Jimenez there instead of him. You're thinking, well, it's a massive downgrade going from Mitrovic to Raul Jimenez, and they probably need to look at another number 9 in January, or potentially, if it's the end of the season, it could be a bit too late for them. I don't think they're bad enough to go down, but in terms of what they were so good at last season, they haven't seemed to replicate that this season. I
think what's saving them at the moment is just the form of Burnley, Bournemouth, Sheffield United. They're really struggling for any sort of ability to get to kind of muster results, whereas Fulham have been getting results here and there, albeit the only 3 wins they've had this season are Luton at home 1-0, last week against Sheffield United at home 3-1, and then the first day of the season they beat Everton 1-0, where Leno was man of the match, and they were very lucky to win that game. So I think they could definitely be dragged into a relegation battle, in my opinion, if they don't improve things drastically. There's just nowhere where you look at the team where you're seeing where the goals are coming from. The only thing they're relying on is maybe kind of Wilson can pull something out the bag. João Palhinha can keep them in games with their solid defensive structure, and then maybe kind of snatch a goal down the other end, maybe even against a run player from a set piece, and then just hold out for a result. That's pretty much, it seems, how they've been getting results so far this season. I don't think they're too good to go down. I think the only thing that maybe could save them is that there are probably 3 worse teams in terms of on paper and even on the pitch right now. So I think that can save them. But if the other teams improve, I can really see Fulham being dragged into it, because I don't see Fulham improving massively.
I do kind of think, though, like, if January comes and they can get a striker through the door, then that can put a bit of daylight between them and the likes of Luton, Sheffield United, Bournemouth, even Burnley. And I rate Marco Silva as a manager. I think he's a good manager, but I just feel like the club haven't done him any favours with the transfer business that they've done during the summer, which is the reality of the situation. But I do think those 4 clubs that I've mentioned have been worse for Fulham, and maybe apart from Burnley, you can't. Luton are improving, to be fair. They are improving. They're starting to get points on the board. Like, I guess it's a bit too early for this kind of conversation. But when you're looking at the head-to-head between Spurs and Fulham, it's quite favourably in the favour of Tottenham. We have won 4 of our last 5 games against them, with 1 draw coming in 2021. We do have a bit of revenge though to talk about, because they did knock us out the cup earlier on this season when Ange made 9 changes to the team. It's going to be a completely different game this time, with Spurs going for their strongest lineup. But last season, if you cast your mind back to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium when we won 2-1 with Højbjerg scoring, putting us 1-0 up, I think, in the first half. Højbjerg is going to be very important for this game as well. He is going to be coming in for the suspended Yves Bissouma. And what kind of difference do you think that will bring to the team?
Well, we're not going to have that ability to as easily break through the middle third with amazing ball carrying ability that Bissouma's been bringing us. I think when it comes to defensively and it comes to how we're able to stop Fulham, I'm not too worried about that. I think we should have the capabilities to easily dominate the midfield battle even without Bissouma. But what Bissouma has been, why he's been so effective this season, is he's been a bit of a cheat code both on and off the ball. So he's got one of the highest numbers in the league for tackles and interceptions per 90 in the league. So it shows that defensively he's been extremely difficult to get past when he's on the pitch. But he also is in the upper echelons when it comes to progressive passes and ball carrying ability in the middle third. So he basically gives us a full package when it comes to a defensive midfield in that position, and it means that we have the ball carrying ability as well as the defensive ability. Now with Højbjerg in there, I think passing wise, progressive passes, I think he's pretty good. I think he can do that job. But when it comes to getting the ball and taking people on and just breaking the midfield through his sheer ability to break the lines through ball carrying ability, he doesn't have that in his locker. So we're going to have to find different solutions to basically finding the spaces in midfield and progressing the ball forward into their final third. We saw when we played Fulham away without Bissouma, that was something we definitely struggled with when it came from playing out the back and progressing the ball forward into the final third. We really struggled just to get into the attacking positions, especially in the first half. I mean, second half we improved a bit, but first half we definitely struggled. And João Palhinha is nothing to be sniffed at when it comes to playing against someone like him. He is a very good midfielder. So he's, even by himself, he is so difficult to get past. So we're going to lose a bit, but I think even with that loss of Bissouma, that we should have enough in that midfield to be able to compensate with that, with just better passing ability, moving the ball maybe a bit quicker. Maybe Maddison drops a bit deep and he can be the link between the defense and attack, and he can be the one who does the ball carrying ability instead of Bissouma. So we have options, but we definitely lose a bit with Bissouma not being there.
Would you like to see, I know we are going to see Højbjerg drop down to that 6, but would you potentially like to see maybe even Pape Matar Sarr dropping down to that 6 and Højbjerg playing a bit more advanced? Because that's how he likes it with Denmark. Yeah,
it's just a question of Sarr defensively. Will he be able to patrol that in that number 6 area as well as Højbjerg could? Do we trust him enough to play that lone 6 role in a 4-3-3? Maybe he wants someone a bit older, a bit more experienced in that role. There's nothing maybe to suggest how Sarr plays that he couldn't do it. We've seen like this season he's obviously been unbelievable off the ball with his ability to cover every blade of grass and his ability to get back in position and make the challenges. But it's been from a more of a position where he's always got the cover to help him, and if he's the cover, then it might be a different situation. So he's always gone for Højbjerg in the 6 when given the opportunity, and I expect that to happen again. I do think personally that Højbjerg would probably be himself better in number 8 position than in the number 6, but when it comes to him or Sarr, I think it probably makes a bit more sense just to go with Højbjerg.
I'd like to see it though. I'd like to see him try the Sarr in the number 6 and Højbjerg to be that a bit more advanced, because I do think as well that maybe Højbjerg, in terms of his progressive passing from those areas of the pitch, is probably a bit better and to a higher standard than Pape at the moment.
I agree with that, to be honest. I think he's probably, but that might be even more reason to have him in the 6 in a way.
Point. Yeah, it's a fair point, because we do need that kind of, because that kind of number 6 role in the Ange system needs that, doesn't it? So yeah, look, I guess you can argue both cases for which way you want to go, but I think for all argument's sake, it will be Højbjerg probably in that number 6. Because Ange said in his press conference, like, Højbjerg is just a natural replacement, and we've got a ready-made replacement for Bissouma and Pierre. So I think that tells you everything you need to know for the game on Monday night. But in terms of this predicted lineup for Fulham, The standout player there is obviously João Paulinho in the middle of the park. Do you think that Højbjerg is going to run into a few problems with him there? Because last season he was absolutely outstanding, and he got the links with Bayern Munich, which he nearly joined in the summer. Obviously, that didn't materialize and it fell apart in the last minute. But he's kind of like the odd one out in that Fulham team at the moment. He's like, seems to me like the only one with like only some proper real quality there.
Yeah, he's absolutely fantastic, Paulinho, and I would have said he's underrated, but he nearly moved to Bayern in the summer. I think people are starting to realise how effective a midfielder he has been for Fulham, and he's, I think, a big part of the reason last season why they did so well. And we saw this season earlier on when he wasn't in the team, they were struggling. He came back in, and things improved fairly significantly from a defensive point of view, and he just gives you everything. He's amazing off the ball. He covers so much ground. He's so strong. He's so hard to get past on the ball. I wouldn't say he's an amazing ball carrier, but he's got quality. He can definitely play. He's a very good passer. He's got very good positional awareness as well. He's a top 6 midfielder, no doubt about it.
Emirates as well this season.
Scored at the Emirates to make it 2-2. He's a top 6 midfielder, no doubt about it. There's a reason why Bayern Munich were after him. I really believe he could play at any of the clubs in the upper echelons of the Premier League. He's that good, and he's a proper professional as well. He hasn't even though all the speculation about Bayern and a failed move could have definitely affected a lot of players, it hasn't let him affect him. And I think he's been absolutely a top professional. He's doing a top job for Fulham, and he's going to be the biggest problem when it comes to deal with them. Even though obviously he's not an attacking player, defensively he's like an extra player almost with how he is able to cover that midfield. So I wouldn't say Højbjerg necessarily. I think it's more whether Maddison can wriggle away from him and get that space, because if he can, I can see him causing a lot of damage. But if Paulinho has him on lockdown, it's going to be a lot more difficult to create the level of chances that we hope to.
Why is it so hard to beat this Fulham team when they're playing away from home? They've only lost one game so far away from home this season. That was a heavy defeat to Manchester City. But they've gone to Crystal Palace and taken a point. They've gone to Arsenal and taken a point. They've beaten Everton at Goodison as well, a 1-0 win. What is it about this Fulham team? Why are they not losing that many games away from home with kind of what we're saying about them not being good enough?
I think that will turn, in my opinion. I think there's probably a bit of an element of luck in a few, especially I thought the Arsenal game, they were very lucky to get a point. I know that you got to give them credit because 10 men is never easy, and they were 2-1 down with 10 men as well, and they're able to get a point. But the chances Arsenal missed, they definitely should have won that game. The Palace game, Palace is struggling right now with their front line. Everton, Leno was man of the match. They got extremely lucky in that game to get all 3 points. Even 1 point, they would have been lucky, but 3 points was very lucky. So I think, but on the flip side, I don't want to completely say that all the results are luck, because I think they're a fairly solid defensive team and they're very hard to break down, and they don't really concede. Apart from obviously when they're playing the bit better teams, they don't concede like massive amounts of chances. They've got good players in defensive areas and people like João Paulinho as well. And obviously away from home, naturally you're going to be a bit more defensive, especially if you're a team like Fulham. A point away from home is usually, regardless of who it is, more often than not, a point away from home is a good result. So they usually set up quite defensive, and that probably suits them playing on the counter-attack in that essence. And they are quite hard to break down. So it's not going to be easy. I think that's probably why they had a bit more joy away from home, because maybe at home they open up a bit and they don't really have that attacking talent to make full advantage of the opportunities when they're opening up a bit, and they're leaving themselves a bit more open defensively, and then they end up getting caught out. So I think they're a bit harder to play probably at the moment away from home, but I think at the moment from the games I've assessed them away from home, I think there's been a huge slice of luck for the amount of points they've been able to accumulate, and I don't think that's sustainable.
We have seen Spurs struggle a couple of times this season trying to break down low blocks. I know that we should have scored many, like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 in the opening stages against Luton, but essentially we didn't score, and we struggled to break them down at times, and we ended up getting a 1-0 win from a set piece. Sheffield United at home, we left it really late until the last seconds of the game to go and win that game. We struggled to break them down at times. Do you feel like it's going to be a similar game here with Fulham coming and setting up a low block and maybe trying to mark Sonny out the game?
Yeah, it could do. I think they're definitely, again, very similar to the game against Sheffield United and Luton. We had chances early in those games to take the lead, and we didn't take them. And all of a sudden, it becomes a slog and becomes a lot more difficult when you don't take those early chances, especially against teams who are coming to the Tottenham Stadium looking to frustrate us and looking to restrict us from creating as many chances. It's so important in these games that you come out flying out the traps and try and get that early goal to open the game up. And we could have done that in those games, and we just weren't able to finish the chances.
That was the fastest we've come out of traps this season against Luton. I mean, we were on fire in those first 10, 20 minutes, and we just couldn't find the back of the net.
So I wouldn't say it's a case of us struggling per se. I think it's more of a case of you just got to make sure that when we create those chances early on, once the defence are a bit unsettled, they got to settle into the game. If you can just take one or two of those chances, all of a sudden it's a different picture. If we come out like we did against Luton, I'm confident we'll score one of those opportunities if we do the same. So I think, but if we don't, and then we let their defence settle into their shape, and all of a sudden it becomes a struggle to break them down, then it becomes a different game. So I think it's vitally important that we can take one of those early opportunities. We've got the players to do it. We've got the quality to do it. We've got the momentum. We're in a very good way at the moment. So even though, like, if you remember the Carabao Cup game, we struggled in that game to break them down and create chances, but I wasn't even overly impressed with Fulham in that game. The goal they scored was an own goal, which was a bit of a fluke. Other than that, they didn't create too many great opportunities. Even then, we took them to penalties, even with a second string team. Even late in that game, we could have won the game as well. So, and that's again, that was with a team who wasn't very fluid, who wasn't able to free-flowingly create chances like hopefully a more solid team that we're going to put out against Fulham on Monday should do. So I definitely see it not being the easiest of games if in the first half we're struggling to create opportunities. But if we can really come flying out the blocks and take a chance early, I see it being a lot more easy to manage.
Is this a massive game now? Is this like a much bigger game now because Arsenal dropped points yesterday?
I'm not looking at that, to be honest. Obviously, it'd be nice to go back top of the league. What I'm more interested in, to be honest, is if we win, we go 7 points clear of fifth. That is what I'm more interested in when I'm looking at, because that's a significant gap. To go 2 points ahead of Arsenal now is not significant. That can change in a week.
But to be fair, they go Newcastle away in a couple of weeks.
Who, Newcastle? Who, Arsenal? Doesn't matter. It's too early. It's too small a gap to be talking about.
Gap's got to be made from somewhere, though.
Yeah, I know, but and technically, if we win this and then beat Palace on Friday, we can go 5 points clear at the top without anyone playing again. So that would be nice. Don't get me wrong, and that puts us in a strong position. But in terms of things that we could that I'm looking at the table and thinking, what can really be done right now that is actually significant, I think going 7 points clear of fifth place and really putting a bit of daylight between us and the rest of the chasing pack in top four, that would be significant at this stage, especially with those teams having European football, and there definitely will be more drop points coming, even against teams you don't expect. There'll be more drop points coming from those teams. I think we can create a buffer as early as possible, a big gap, so that later in the season, we could have
before this international break. If we can get maximum points or as many as we can get before this next international break, after the international break comes, we've got a string of really hard fixtures. So we need to put ourselves with that buffer for that period, because there's no doubt about it, we're going to drop points over that period. We can't not. Yeah.
So I think everyone's going to drop points, and especially us as well. I'm sure there'll be times where we're going to drop points. So I think if we can have that, if that 7 point buffer, and that could be 10 points with a winner against Palace on Friday, all of a sudden, in a week's time, we could be 10 points clear of fifth place. And considering where nothing's guaranteed when it comes to top four, and you've got to fight for every point, and yes, we've had a great start, but by no means does that mean we're guaranteed to be in that top four. I'm not looking at Arsenal, Liverpool, City, and creating a big points gap between them, because that's going to change a lot especially with the small points difference. That can change within a week with one bad result. All three of them win, all somewhere in fourth place. But if we could have a 10-point gap or a 7-point gap between us and fifth place, I think that puts us in an extremely strong position when it comes to getting in that top four come the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even now, even early on.
So you think even now you're looking at the league table in terms of the top four and stuff, or do you take it even more seriously maybe when the games come thick and fast in December?
Yeah, obviously it's still very early on. We're not even 10 games in, so you can't make too many sweeping conclusions. But if you can create a 7-point gap after 9 games, that's significant. That is a significant gap, and that would tell me as well that could potentially get bigger before if we can keep up the good form and we can keep like getting consistent results. That gap I don't see getting too much smaller between now and December, potentially for the next month or so. So that's why this game on Monday is so important that we get all 3 points, because it sets us up in such a good position when it comes to achieving what we want to achieve come the end of the season.
And the last thing I just want to talk about is probably the only contentious spot to talk about in the team on Monday night, which is the left wing. Brennan Johnson is back. Richarlison, if you cast your mind back to last year, Fulham at home, I think that's when he made his debut, his first start for Spurs, playing off, I think, was he the right wing or the left wing? I can't remember which wing he played off, but I think it was one of his better games for Spurs that day. He famously took his shirt off for a goal that was disallowed. He hit the post and he was causing a nuisance for himself. And with the way Fulham played, do you think it's more suited to a Richarlison than a Brennan?
Probably. Obviously, Brennan has showed a lot in his cameos so far, and he is coming back from injury. And got
even Brian Hill, didn't even mention Brian.
Yeah, Brian Hill, who's looking. I was looking at the training videos. He's looking fairly sharp, so maybe he's one who potentially. I think Ange obviously will make the decision based on who he thinks is looking the best right now and who he thinks deserves a spot. But if I'm just doing this based on previous performances and who I think should keep his spot, I think Richarlison, last couple games, yes, he missed some good chances against Luton, and he'll be very disappointed with that. Against Liverpool the week before, I thought he had a pretty good game and he was starting to improve on the left wing. And I thought he was unlucky against Luton, the fact that we went down to 10 men just before half time and he was the unlucky one to be hooked at the break. Whereas if he stayed on and if he maybe got another opportunity in that second half, maybe he would have taken it. So I think he's been improving. I don't want to. I think there's no big reason to drop him unless he really believes that Brennan's being a lot better than him in training right now. I think based on performance, I would like to see Richarlison carry on. I think if he can get the chances he got against Fulham, I back him to put one of them away in this one.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Richarlison, because since the last international break, the end of it, it's been like a kind of upward trajectory for Richarlison in terms of his performances. And I felt like it was a bit of a step backwards after that Luton game, and he would probably be frustrated that the international break came after that Luton game, so he probably wanted another Spurs game straight away to kind of put that right. But I guess it's his opportunity to put it right this weekend. He's got previous for performing well against Fulham, and let's hope that he can have another good performance. But that's our match preview for the Fulham game tomorrow night, 8 o'clock kickoff. Sim will be in the stadium at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium tomorrow, and in the studio you've got Josh King and Marlon for the watch along, so come and join them and get their insights of the game. But let's do our predictions. What are you going for?
I'm going for 2-0. I think that even though no Basuma is definitely going to have an impact, I don't think it'll have too much of a significant impact. That the decrease in performance should mean that we're struggling too much to create chances. I think Fulham right now, I'm just looking at their front line. I'm looking at their team. I'm like, I don't see where they're massively going to hurt us unless they get a goal, like, a lucky goal from a deflection or a set piece or something like that. I don't see too many avenues where I'm too worried about them. And I think even without Basuma, we should have enough to progress the ball to the final third, enough in the game to create the opportunities to win the game. And I think we should have the quality. So I'm going for a 2-0 win for Spurs.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. I think when you're looking at Fulham this season, they're not great on the eye, let's be honest, and I think they've lost a lot in terms of with Mitrovic going. Their play from the wide areas isn't as strong as it was last season, so they're not getting as many crosses in the box, even for players like Carlos Vinicius and Raul Jimenez to get on the end of them, even though it's a massive drop off from Mitrovic anyway. So I think they have lost a lot in terms of what their strong attributes were and why they were so dangerous last season. So I think Spurs will win this game, but I think without Bissouma there and with Højbjerg there, we also lose quite a bit in the middle of the park. So it'll be a tough game, but I think if we can get an early goal, I think we can go on to win this game quite convincingly, with Fulham probably being forced to come out more than they wanted to. So I'm also going to go 2-0. I think it'd be quite nervy at times.
I think one player we didn't mention though, who I actually think has been their best player of the season, is Leno. I think Leno's probably been their best player of the season, and we know that
he was top last season as well.
Yeah, and I think this season he's been spectacular for a lot of the time. A lot of the time they're getting results because of him, and we know Spurs have form of coming up against keepers in inspired form, and especially him, former Arsenal keeper as well. So that's definitely something to look at.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I think Leno is definitely. It's like I said before, like Palini is the only one with world quality, but I actually think Leno's got some quality to him as well. He's definitely one of the top keepers in the league, in my opinion.
On form, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, that is our match preview. Let me know your score predictions and let me know how you think the game is going to go in the comment section below. But let's get into our predicted lineup. And Ange Postecoglou has been speaking. He actually spoke on Friday in terms of the press conference and the team news. What have we got to talk about today?
Yeah, promising, really promising stuff. First of all, we'll touch on Rodrigo Bentancur. So Bentancur is now back training with the team and in full training. He said he's not match fit yet. He won't be available this weekend in the squad because he's got to manage the situation carefully. But the fact that he's back in training and training with the first team is very, very encouraging, and that's got to put excitement in a lot of Tottenham fans' eyes. You saw the videos in training, him linking up with Maddison as well. He's looking sharp. So
silky.
Yeah, he is, and I can't wait to get him back involved. We know how good he is. So really, really promising news. Maybe in the next few weeks we might see him drip fed back into the team, sub appearances, and then hopefully that he'll make his way into the team. Lo Celso's back in full training. Brian Hill's back in full training, so they're going to be available for this weekend. But other than that, they're obviously Basuma suspended. He's not going to be available. Manuel Solomon obviously has a long-term injury. So does Perisic. So does Sessegnon. And I can't remember who else is on the graphic there, but
Mano.
Yeah, so I said Mano. Mano's got a long-term injury. Brennan's a doubt, but he sounds like he is going to be available this weekend because he only had a slight knock before or slight injury before the weekend. So it's not exactly a clean bill of health, but definitely more promising signs.
We're getting back there, aren't we? And like we had so many scares over international break. It seems like we have so many scares like every week for this team.
Yeah,
like,
Romero
all the time, Sonny all the time, and like. I was watching parts of that South Korea game when Sonny was playing. And I was like, he was going down like literally every 20 minutes, every 25 minutes. And it was just like, oh, just take the guy off, please. And Romero's the one that went off at halftime. And we're all thinking the worst because of that. And he's fine. So it looks as though that things are definitely more positive now than they looked on international break.
Just quickly touching on Romero, him saying after he said why he got taken off, he said he was... he felt a bit of in his ankle and he wanted to make sure he was available for the game on Monday, big game against Fulham. So that was really nice to hear. And it also maybe puts to bed any of that people saying he cares about Argentina more than Spurs. And I mean, maybe he does, but in terms of people saying like he's willing to sacrifice Spurs for Argentina, all that kind of stuff. And maybe that goes against that narrative, which was nice to see.
I think like it shows as well the growing responsibility that Kuti is carrying on his chest with the vice captaincy and stuff. I mean, we've spoken about it all season, haven't we? How good Romero's looked this season and how much more responsibility he's taken on. And I think that's just another example of it, to be honest. But let's get into the lineup. We're going to go for a 4-3-3 formation as per usual. In goal, Vicario. We got called up to Italy, but didn't make any minutes. But he's been definitely the standout goalkeepers in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, definitely. And that's not to be sniffed at because we're looking at a few keepers now, aren't we, who've joined their new clubs. You got Raya at the moment, who seems to be struggling a bit in the last few games. Onana's had massive struggles. So it's not easy going into a new club and performing at a high level like Vicario has done. And not only is he performing at a high level, you could argue maybe the most informed keeper in the league right now, maybe apart from Alisson.
And you actually look at it as well with David Raya. That's the one that we were supposed to be going for, right? And cast your mind back to the North London derby time. They were like, all the Arsenal fans were telling us, oh, there's no chance Vicario is better than any of our keepers. Well, if you take everything out of the equation and just look at Vicario's performances and Raya's performances so far this season, there's no doubt in my mind Vicario has been the better keeper.
He's been head and shoulders above both those keepers and a lot of other keepers this season. He's got the highest save percentage in the league so far this season. So I think when it comes to shot stopping, he's been sensational. And then he's been really good with the ball at his feet as well and been very composed. And he seems to be improving that element of his game as well week by week. So brilliant start so far. And obviously he gets the nod.
Yeah, so Vicario goal. Right back is obviously going to be Pedro Porro, who again has been one of the standout right backs in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. Really stepped up his game defensively this season to a lot to the surprise of a lot of Spurs fans. Hopefully, in this game, he can show a bit more of his ability going forward, because against a very stubborn Fulham team, we might need a bit of quality from deep positions to kind of break him down. And we know Porro definitely can pull that off. So, yeah, he definitely gets the nod here.
Alongside him on the right centre-back position, we did have a bit of a scary international break, but he is going to be fit to face Fulham, and that is Cuti Romero.
Yeah, really, really great to hear. And it's going to be important. Obviously, they don't have the biggest threats in the forward line. Like, we expect Raul Jimenez to probably start. And although, what I would say about Jimenez is he's not scoring, but he is still making a bit of an impact when it comes to kind of his hold-up play and general play. He's still fairly decent at that. But when it comes to his ability in the box, attacking things like he used to, like from headers and stuff, he's definitely struggling. So I think Romero's main task in this game isn't going to be to keep Jimenez quiet. It's going to be more to, when he has the ball, to make sure he's providing line-breaking passes with quality as much as possible. And we know that he's got that in him.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up is Mickey van der Ven at left centre back. He got his first minutes in the Netherlands shirt this weekend and looked fairly good at times, albeit I don't know if you saw it in one of the games. He nearly gave away a goal against Greece, but apart from that, I thought he was stellar. But again, one of the top performing centre backs in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, and I thought he was the only good player when we played Fulham in the Carabao Cup in what was a really poor performance on the night. We know what he's all about. He's been so consistent this season. We'll see if Adama Traore does play in this game, maybe he's going to have a bit more work out for him. But if not, I just see it being a fairly comfortable day for Van der Ven.
Yeah, let's hope so. And then to make up that back four on the left-hand side of the defence will be Destiny Udogie, who got his debut as well for Italy during the international break. First start against England as well. And he performed fairly well, getting his obligatory yellow card in the first 10 minutes. But no, Destiny as well is going to be really important in this game.
And he came on against Malta and got an assist, if I recall, on his debut. So hopefully that gives him even more like justification for how well he's been playing this season, getting his first caps for Italy as well, and also playing well. So hopefully that really shows him he belongs at this level, if he hasn't already proved that to himself with his performances so far at the beginning of this season, which has been phenomenal. He's been so impressive, and I back him in this one. He's probably going to come up against Harry Wilson, I would assume, who's been playing most of the time on the right-hand side, and I expect Udogie to eat him alive.
Absolutely. So let's go through that back four with you guys one more time. It's Vicario in goal, Pedro Porro, Romero, Mickey van der Ven, and Destiny Udogie. In the number 6 position, we're going to go for Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. Ange Postecoglou all pretty much confirmed it in the press conference that Højbjerg is the ready-made replacement for Yves Bissouma.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. And as much as there is going to be a bit of like because of how good Bissouma's been this season, there's a bit of trepidation, obviously, when he's not going to be available for this game. But Højbjerg, people forget, is a good player in his own right. He's not this dud that people make him out to be. He is a very competent footballer who's done a good job for in this season when called upon by and large from sub appearances. I think he's done a good job. I think he can do the 6 role to a decent level. And I think even if he has to fill in for a game, I think he should have enough to be able to deal with it. So I'm confident Højbjerg can have a good game here.
Yeah, but he needs to have a much better game than he had at Craven Cottage earlier this season, because he was absolutely shocking that day. So hopefully he can learn from that display and put a much better one, albeit he did score against Fulham last season at home as well. So he's got previous against Fulham. But in terms of the other midfielder we're going to talk about is Pape Matar Sarr, another player that we had a scare with in international break. He went off after the hour mark for Senegal with an ice pack on his knee, but he seems to be absolutely fine.
Yeah, which is really great to hear. And he's going to be important just to add those legs in the middle, because Fulham's midfield 3, I'm going to assume it's going to be Paulinho, probably Andreas Pereira, and probably Harrison Reed, I would say. And it is not the easiest midfield 3 to kind of deal with. They got a lot of energy and they're very hard working, very disciplined. And when you've got someone like Sarr who's just buzzing around and not letting them breathe, that's going to be very important to just making sure we're sustaining the pressure and allowing us to win. So Sarr's going to be very important in this game.
Yeah, and alongside Pape Matar to make up that midfield three will be James Maddison, and I get the feeling he's going to be the most important player for Spurs this weekend in terms of trying to break them down with the quality and the creativity that Maddison has. He's going to be imperative to have a good game if we're going to get anything.
Yeah, for me, so far to be being the Premier League's best player so far this season, every challenge and every kind of defensive midfielder he's come up against, he's pretty much got the better of, and it's been really, really impressive showing from James Maddison so far. João Palhinha is going to be another challenge, and he's going to be one of his toughest challenges yet, but he's got the quality to overcome it, and he's been like that. I've just no doubt that Maddison can find the time and space that he needs, even on a few occasions, to find moments of quality to get goals for us or create chances. So he's going to be super important. But I'm backing him, and also with Lo Celso back as well. Thankfully, we have that alternative to him, or even to partner him if things aren't going our way late in the game as well. So that's really positive.
All right, so Højbjerg, Sarr and Maddison in the middle of the park. On the right-hand side of the attack, it's obviously going to be Dejan Kulusevski, who's, I think, has had an underrated role this season, hasn't he?
I agree, and I think he's been playing really well. Definitely hasn't been getting made the plaudits he deserves for some of his performances so far this season. Again, we now do have alternatives to him. We've got Brennan Johnson coming back in. We've got Brian Hill, who seems to be fully integrated into the first team, and he's looking sharp as well. So hopefully that gives good alternatives to him if Kulusevski isn't working. But I think Kulusevski's been doing great. Anthony Robinson on the left-hand side is not an easy player to play against, especially with his physicality. But I'm backing Kulusevski to get the better of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to note that, isn't it? Because you look at before the international break with the options that we've had off the bench to change games hasn't really been inspiring. But that's kind of changing a little bit now with the likes of Brian Hill, Giovanni Lo Celso, and a few others that we have, Brennan Johnson, to come off the bench and really change things. But in terms of the number 9 position is obviously going to be Heung-min Son, our captain, who since moving to the number 9 has just been absolutely sensational. And this is his first game after picking up Player of the Month award as well.
Yeah, he's had a brilliant month and he's playing so well. I think Fulham are struggling in their centre-back role at the moment because Tosin's injured. I believe Issa Diop is out, and I believe one of Basiorim, I believe, is out or suspended or something like that for this game. So I read before on that they're struggling for centre-back, so maybe Paulinho might play or something in centre-back in this game. So Sonny will definitely be looking at that as an opportunity to get the better of him.
It's and Adebayo, Tete and Diop.
Yeah, I read for some reason they're considering playing Paulinho at centre-back. So I think one of the other two might be injured or something, or it was suspended or something. I can't remember why. But I did read that in the pre-match press conference. So Sonny will definitely be licking his lips when it comes to that. There has been his struggles when teams are sitting deep and defending in a low block, but I think he's starting to kind of adapt to it a bit more, playing in that role a bit more consistently. And we saw against Arsenal, if you give him even an inch, he's got the finishing ability to punish you. And if he can do that in this game, I believe he's got the ability to do that in this game. So as much as he has struggled, I think this is a game where I actually see he might get a few opportunities.
All right. And then to make up the final 11 is Richarlison on the left-hand side. It is a bit of a toss-up between him and Brennan Johnson. He has favoured Brennan Johnson maybe before Brennan got injured, but Brennan probably is going to be available for selection. But maybe with him having a late fitness test and Richarlison with an upturn of form since the last international break, I think we've just sided with Richarlison for this one.
Yeah, and I think as well, having Richarlison's aerial ability in that final third is definitely a weapon that we need and we don't have without him. So I think for now, considering I know against Luton he missed chances, but he was getting in those positions to miss the chances. And as long as he's keep getting in those positions, I'm backing him to put a few of them away. And hopefully he can carry on his good form, well, not good form, but better form, I would say, from before the international break. So I'm backing Richarlison to start again.
All right, so let's run through that lineup with you guys one more time. So in goal is Vicario, right back Pedro Porro, left back Destiny Udogie with the centre back pairing of Cuti Romero and Mickey van de Ven. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Pape Matar and James Maddison make up our 3-man midfield with Dejan Kulusevski and Richarlison supporting Heung-min Son. In our match preview, we both went 2-0. Are you sticking with that?
I'm sticking with it, yeah.
All right, so 2-0 is our predictions. Let us know in the comment section below. Do you think this will be the starting 11? If not, Let me know your changes in the comment section below. Let us know your score predictions in the comment section below. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. We'll see you all tomorrow, which is match day. Ange Ball is back tomorrow and I cannot wait. But like, subscribe and comment. And as always,
come on you Spurs.